is fall time, and on the Hashknife Ranch, we've got things preparing for the upcoming cattle sale season and leading into winter feeding. So today's discussion is just that. Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I'm Calen, the youthful individual on your right. Brandon, my father, my co-host, my compadre, is the grizzled individual on your left. If you enjoy our content, like. If you want to add something, comment. If you like what we provide to you every single week, subscribe. With that, that's all I have for our intro. So we're gonna start off with fall in the Hashknife on the Hashknife Ranch. It's 2023. This year so far, futures are looking good for cattle prices. We don't know yet because we haven't sold anything, but there's been a lot of things happening up to this point leading into the cattle sales and also preparing for the looming months-long winter feeding process that will be just winter in general. So here we are. Here we're gonna talk, discuss, have fun, yell, maybe laugh, maybe cry, maybe bleed a little bit, but here we are. It's the Hashknife Hangouts. And Dad, what's your take?
Just another year. It's that time when you feel the cool, nice early mornings, and they're down there around, well, the other day we had 39 above. And it's mid-September. It's that time where, okay, one of these days we're going to get hit in the butt with some snow. What do I need to do to get ready for this? And you've been putting in hay, you've been doing all of the small work that really can't get done in the wintertime. Fencing, the big one, just tightening up some of these fences. We're going to bring these cattle home from summer pasture here shortly and get ready. We're going to be preconditioning so that we can take these calves to sale about 2-3 weeks after we precondition, maybe a month after. Anyway, during that time when they get that booster shot, everything looks good. They're grassing up a little bit more, gaining some weight, and then we'll take them to town. And like you say, you're always watching that market. And not that it does any good, because the day you go is the day you go, unless for some reason something happens that you just say, nope, we'll wait a week. And then you scramble to be able to accommodate these cattle because you've just weaned them. And you don't want to, now you got to kind of keep them separate from these cows, and it can be quite the fiasco, but you work through it. And like always, you hope for a high price of cattle when you go, and always wish you could get more. And usually it's because it's not enough when you do get it. So hopefully this year is going to be a little bit different. That you're right. Everybody's talking about the futures of small family ranches, and it's years like this that we're looking to make a profit. We hope. And if everything goes right. Now, just today, we're out checking cows and looking at minerals, taking water, taking a look at it, how much mineral blocks they got, looking at the cattle themselves. Found a dead cow and a dead calf, and really nice heifer calf, doornail dead. And same way a cow, she's an older cow, but she's in great shape. She's 13 years old, but man, she was producing a really good calf, and she's holding her weight, and that's what you want. And so those are sudden things that happen just before you go to market. You're like, crap, can't do anything about it. You try to figure out what the cause was, and I'm still not sure. Maybe they got into some plants they shouldn't have that I haven't identified yet. I don't know. We'll see. But it's a little early for hunting season. They weren't shot. I've got no reason to believe they were. We've had that happen in the past, but not with these two. So, but it's all a preparation. It's part of that. I'm looking at those corrals and seeing what I got to do to kind of beef them up a little bit before we bring everybody in and sort and precondition, and then send them back out and get ready to gather. I'm doing some work on some horse traders. I got to check in wheel bearings lights, brakes, and getting them all ready so that they're really good and usable and available when we want to go. So worst thing you can do is have a load of cattle on a trailer and lose a wheel bearing. That's a bad thing, you know. I mean, those cattle are on there, and then you got to do something with them. They're losing weight the minute they step on those trailers, and you start hauling them to town. They're losing weight. They're shrinking. So you know, those are things you want to try to guard against. And you know, you don't think about, you know, as a plan. You just say, okay, I see that's got to be done. That's got to be done, and you go and do it. So it's but there's kind of a checklist in your head too. I was just walking through the barn and I looked over and I went, okay, I need to get that those calving jugs cleaned up here in the next few months, because before you know it, we're going to be calving. And you know, that's really 6 months away, but that 6 months goes fast, way fast. So like right now I'm feeding some steers. That's a fall activity. Sometimes in the spring too, but I'm hand feeding some butcher steers that people have bought, and keeping them separated, keeping them so they're getting an equal share of their grain, and you got some good feed in front of them, fresh water, and trying to keep them calm, and you know, amongst everything else that's going on. So I don't know, it's a process, but it's always a process, it seems.
Uh, I'm typing my little heart away, like Kermit the Frog on a little gift that I sent you today. Um, the, this particular episode, I felt like it wasn't necessary to really prep like I typically do, because we've been here the last couple of years. It's the same conversation to an extent. It's just in 2023, but I still feel like it's important, particularly because it's important with the calf sale. I feel like every time we come to fall time, there's two big things that happen that are important. And I don't want to make one more important than the other, but they're both at the top of priorities for sure. And if anybody were to say like you can't prioritize two things at the same time, yeah, you kind of can in this particular circumstance, and that's the sale of calves coming up in, you know, October here, the looming months. And then the second is preparing for winter feeding, and that's what you're talking. You spent a little bit of time talking about both of them. We'll dive into it more, but I, like I said, I was taking notes on everything you said. I've got, you know, checking cows and the result of that, preconditioning calves, some of the fencing stuff, which tentatively I've edited and I have it already pre-planned and scheduled, but because of this episode, it may get shifted a little bit. I'm planning on having that come out the 14th of October. So mid-October, it'll have you and mom's wonderful narrative. It's actually quite hilarious. I felt watching it, her narrative of you guys fencing together on two little short strands of a fence there close to the, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
She always makes fun of me while we're fencing or doing something. Of course,
Oh,
I
it was
out of
fantastic.
her
I
too.
loved it. And then you brought up an important thing that's more philosophical and I think deeper in discussion is the future of small ranches, and you know what may or may not happen with a potential profit this year. And some of the recourses of that in relation to the past. And then I said prepping for winter, but then hay status that feeds into prepping for winter, not, you know, please pardon the pun on that one because people know where we're leading onto that. And then of course the butcher animal. So I'm just going to start with the checking the cows. Let's get that knocked out of the way. You said you came across a cow and a calf. Were they both the same pair?
No.
They were different. Okay, so one cow was different from one calf. So what's going on with the calf? That you can understand the cow that lost the calf, right? Like it can just go do its own thing. It's gonna be fine. What about the calf that is now missing a mother? How's that handled?
Well, it's just going to be weaned a little bit early, and
Sure.
it may steal milk from another cow. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, we see that all the time. So I'm not, and you know, this calf is basically a month away or 3 weeks away from going to market.
Right.
So not a big deal. You know, so it's not not you know, probably lose a little bit of weight. It may lose a little bit of weight because it's not, you know, still relying on some milk. It's going just to grass, but these guys get pretty sly and they'll steal milk from other cows too. So I don't anticipate too big of a deal with it. That's a good thrifty calf. And then the cow that lost the heifer, it'll just, it'll dry up. So that's, again, just a little bit early, but that's just kind of normal. And she may be nursing some other calves on her own that you don't even know about. And that's always a
Sure.
possibility too. So,
You
but,
said the cause was unknown. You didn't know if they ate something. What were they near each other? Were they far away
yeah,
from
they're in
each
the same
other?
proximity. They're probably, couple 300 yards away from each other.
That's not too
Well,
far. Where were they in proximity? I'm assuming they're still in summer pasture right now.
yep.
Where
They're one was right there close to the spring where the headwaters of the spring is. And
okay.
then that was where the heifer was. And it's been dead probably a week or so. It was fine a week ago, totally good, but it's melted down enough and eaten out enough that I think it's, you know, probably a week, 6, 7 days old. Probably something happened just after we left the last time we saw him, because I think it was a Sunday when your mom and I went out there together and saw him. And then the cow, she looks to me like she's only a couple 3 days, maybe 4 days at the most.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so didn't die together, certainly.
Yeah.
No lightning strikes, there's none of that. It wasn't anything like that, but no bullet holes, but just dead. And so, our grass is curing out, and you wonder about bloat. If one of them got into something, or some kind of a plant that's a little bit toxic and shut them down. I don't know. It's right now it's unknown, and we might not know, but we're gonna, still kind of take a look around, and everything else is fine though. We got to count on everybody else. It took a while, and everybody else looks good. They look healthy. Um, doesn't look like any other issues for anybody else.
So having noted the issue, addressed it to an extent, tried to do a small investigation as to origination of the cause, anything like that. What are your thoughts now with the herd? Like, what are you considering bringing them closer to the house sooner rather than later? Is it going to change your timeline to before you go and bring calves in to wean and send a calf? Like, what impact does this recent finding have on a calf and a cow dead within the same week, but not the same pair, have to do with your planning process for the future?
Well, not really much of a change. Because you look at how many years have we ran this in these pastures the same way. Whenever you've got a little creek or springs, you're gonna have fresh grass around them. That's just the nature of it. And so this is no different this year than any other past years, with the exception that we've had some extra type of growth on different plants, and maybe we're seeing something because we had such a good growth on it that we didn't find and they've consumed, or something happened that just made the both of these guys just start chowing out on a bunch of really fresh grass and bloated and died. I mean, we had that happen last year, but the grass is really kind of curing out. We don't have anything that's not been touched and that's really super lush. This grass is getting pretty hard and drying up. So even the stuff next to the springs is, it's been grubbed down because that's what they go for first anyway, right next to a water
Right.
source. But it's like it'd be hard to get a lot of grass out of that. So I'm leaning more towards something toxic. But that's why we looked at everybody else too. It's like, okay, who else is affected? And boy, we looked them over really close, and there doesn't appear to be anything that's ailing any of them, grown stuff or calves. So we knock on wood that this is just a one-time thing, and you just keep going about things. If we found something that was an issue, then we might, consider moving these cows off of there, or isolating that plants or whatever source we would find. But yeah, we haven't done that.
Braden visited this weekend. I'm assuming he left, shortly.
Yeah, he was only
Because
here for a few hours, long enough for us to build him some stuff for his house.
okay, gotcha.
And
So
it
he
was not.
wasn't around with because
No,
I'm asking because he's got a range land management degree. He understands grasses and plants pretty well. He wasn't around to help you kind of delineate or discern what
right,
might have been a problem.
right. No, how? No,
Oh,
no,
dang.
because he was here and gone yesterday, and this was this morning that we found these. So I mean, they were
Sure.
definitely out there. We just didn't go see them.
Right.
So,
That's
but
unfortunate.
yeah, it is. It sucks. There's a good healthy heifer. Somebody could have picked her up as a replacement heifer. We're not keeping any replacements again this year, but God, she was a nice heifer. So, but they're all looking good this year too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's we had an abundance of grass and it's good hard grass, and they're really gaining weight right now too. So it's surprising the size of these animals and what a little bit of water and good grass and good timing and when you get it will do for an animal's growth.
Well, that leads to preconditioning because we've got to do that before we send the calves to market and sell them. Normally it's a 30 or 40, I think it's 45 days out before the sale, right? That they need to be preconditioned.
2 to 6 weeks. Yeah, there's a
Two to
quite a
6 weeks.
range there that they want them, and it's a booster shot, so they've already
Yeah.
had the initial, when we branded. But they recommend 2 to 6 weeks, so that's what we kind of do is shoot for 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and make sure that they've got a good immunity, and and there's no ailment, nothing happens with them or is causative from the shot itself.
Sure. When we're filming on the what is it, the 17th of September, looking at about a month away, we're gonna sell the calves. When are you planning on bringing them in? And then what's the process? Are you gonna bring them into essentially the main ranch, precondition, release them for a couple weeks, and then sell them, or what is your plan on
Yeah,
taking
well,
care of that?
we've got two bunches, right? We've got some over on one lease, and we got some others on another summer pasture lease. So all the ones that are on we got about 50 pairs on one, and there's a set of corrals over there that we kind of pieced together, and you've helped do that. And we'll bring them in there and put them, just down the chute in a head catch, and give them a shot and some wormer and turn them loose. And then when we gather, and the day we gather is the same day we'll ship, and we'll bring them in, we'll bring them home and do that. And the others, we're just going to bring them in. Same thing, bring them to the corrals at the place here, and going ahead and precondition, give them a shot, give them some wormer, turn them back out with their mothers for, 3 weeks to be able to gain a little bit more weight. If you can get, if you can get 2.5, 3 pounds a day out of them, that's pretty healthy. You're putting another 60, 70 pounds on these weights in a month is just the cream of what you want for your weight. So, and I think we're going to be right up in there in that 600-pound range on most of these animals. So that's pretty good when we're having most of them in late March to early mid-April is when we have the majority of them calves. So we're looking pretty good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Because of that, it kind of just based off the conversation, we're gonna jump ahead from what I had planned, but the preconditioning is followed by the actual calf sale itself. Like I said, the timing right now, like you pointed out, is fantastic. Um, man, it's a bag of mixed emotions right now because right now we are looking at probably an extra we're compared to the last couple of years, we're looking at 150% price difference from what
Right.
was before. So, take the price we've had before, add half again as much on top of that, and we're looking pretty good. It looks happy. It's going to be fantastic, especially for about the poundage range that we produce. The question is, are we going to time it right? Are we going to hit it the right time, or is the market going to crash and just start hitting rock bottom right away, or is it going to continue to climb? As of right now, it's been on a consistent and slightly uphill climb for prices, which is good for us. um I kind of wanted to see, what are your thoughts for current sales with calves, especially when it comes to, let's hold on, knock on wood here. We get these good prices. What's the impact of a profit year over the last few years, especially since, we'll go back to as far as 2014 when it was the first time we really had a really good price for a while.
Yeah, and that was an exceptional year again like this. You got to remember though, we're happy to have a profit, but for the last 2, 3 years, we haven't had a profit. We
Yeah.
broke even, and then we lost money. So you can't write those years off as like, oh, okay, well, you took a loss, big deal. This profit this year helps to fill that hole that was dug in those 2 years. For buying feed, we culled back in order to not have to buy so much feed, and didn't have the grass because of the drought and grasshoppers. So, it's that ebb and flow. And when you get that really nice flow of cash coming in, that's got to cover the previous 2 years that you dipped into other resources in order to stay in business. So it's not all we're going to go out and buy Cadillacs for everybody. That it's not that at all. You wouldn't even be able to buy one Cadillac with what the profit we're going to get, but at least it's a profit and paying ourselves back a little bit from the previous year's losses.
Yeah, I think the important thing here is um it's a tough business for sure because uh, the thing I do get concerned about, we've had this conversation before, is what are the we're looking at short term here. Short term, hopefully we get a little bit of profit to pay back. The long term look back, that hindsight of kind of, man, we struggled for the last few years. Hope that'll hopefully fill a void that's been there. Dipping into personal savings, kind of pay ourselves back, just to essentially let the business break even, but to give us our money back. The other question that I'm concerned about too is, the secondary and tertiary effects that this might have on the market. Because let's say this is a fantastic year, we make a good sized profit margin here, and then you're looking next couple years potentially going right back into the cycle that we've been in for a while. And the worst part that we've discussed, and this is what I've been kind of alluding to, is the price at the grocery store. We've had this conversation multiple times, and that is, when you are trying to sell to a market, to a consumer and a public that oftentimes goes to the grocery store and cusses your name while they're pulling the steak off the shelf, that's not what we want. We've said multiple times, coming from your mouth specifically, we want it to be affordable so that everybody wants to eat beef every single meal.
Day. Yeah.
That's how we make a profit, because then it's a consistent sale process. It's always being sold. We're not asking for a lot. We're asking for a little all the time, versus one big surge one year and then just, famine financially for years to come. And then you hit one more year that's good. And just like, it's that 1 year high that keeps you coming for a decade. Cause we're looking, like we alluded to, 2014 was 9 years ago, and we're looking, and suddenly, okay, potentially we might have this one more really good year. We've been waiting for 8 years to have this.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where I get concerned about, what's the effect of a good year like this going to have on our future potentially. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there's a couple of problems with like the scenario you set up, and people, cuss our name because, we're making all this profit. Even when we're losing money, those prices of those steaks have been high in those grocery stores, and not because we're making a lot of money on it. It's because who is it we complain about? The Packers, the
middlemen.
They use that as an excuse. They love it when prices are low for them to buy, right? I mean, and that's everybody. Whenever any commodity you have, when the price is low and you're buying it and you're selling it for a profit, that's good. But when then you extort that out and you start depressing the market in order to profit from that, then you have an issue where you don't want people to find out that you're doing that. I mean, I think we have a culture in this country where we kind of fight for the underdog. We like the underdog in a lot of ways. We were an underdog. And so we like that. But when a Packers get together and they do this, it's pretty quiet. Nobody, they're happy to let people blame us as producers for the woes of prices in the grocery store, when we don't control that at all. Not one single iota do we control on that end of it. But then when we have a profit year like this, and the profit is because overall numbers are down, there's 3%. Last couple of years we've had 3% drop in inventory, if you want to call it that, nationwide. And actually we have the lowest census in cattle since 1973, I think it was.
I was gonna say it's mid-70s for sure. Yeah. 75 popped into my mind, but you might be right.
Since they started really keeping track, consistently over from state to state. So,
and I'll jump in there real quick. That's also a note to anybody who's been anti-beef for the climate change and stuff like that. We continue to produce record numbers of consumable beef numbers with less and less animals, less and less acreage. It's a tip of the hat to the beef industry, honestly. Like, not to kind of stroke our own ego, but 100% over time we have become more efficient and more capable of producing more with less, and I think that is a good thing. But to your point, in this particular circumstance, is taking advantage of the system as well.
Right. Well, but then you got the other side of that. We've got these high prices because we got low inventories, because people are going out of business, being put out of business by the packers. We're getting influx of foreign meats, putting people out of business. So, again, nothing that we control. But then when it's touted that, man, we're making some good profits this year, then the packers are happy to say, yeah, look at those guys, or people's perception, because they don't know. They don't understand how things work in their food chain. They go, well, those ranchers are scum. They're just making, tons of money off of us because we can't afford beef anymore, because look at the price of stuff in the showcase. It's like, not the way it works. We had nothing to do with that profit. So it's very deceiving, and it's a horrible marketing on our part as producers, not letting people know. And hence, that's the reason we do what we do, trying to get people to understand why where their meat comes from and how it's handled and why it costs what it does, and why you're seeing less and less small family farms and ranches make it. And when you do that, when you go to all corporate, or God forbid, a government-owned food chain, you think it's expensive now. How about not getting it at all? Doesn't matter how much money you got, you may not end up being able to feed yourself. So there's that. Enough on that soapbox, I guess. But yeah, we're like any other business that doesn't profit one year. This is good for us. If we'd have profited the previous years or even broke even, this would be a fantastic year, because wouldn't be digging out of a hole, but we are.
Yeah. No, I agree. And just to cap that point, if you trust an organization to ration your food for you, ask the Native Americans on the reservations in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and how that worked out for them and how they've had to fight out of that hole ever since. Anyway, moving on, in the calf sale part of the fall, we also have small projects. You talked about getting those trailers ready for transport for the calves. My other question was, if you're getting those trailers ready, is Braden going to help you this year?
I'm hoping so. I got to get a hold of him and give him the bad news. I think what I'll do is I'll get a hold of his fiance and say,
yeah,
hey, tell him to be over here to help. And while you're at it, why don't you come and help me too?
I was gonna say congratulations to both of them. He recently dropped down on one knee. She had the poor decision of saying yes, for whatever reason. But anyway, we wish them the absolute best. Look forward to one day seeing them say I do. But yeah, absolutely take advantage of her. Have her try and get him to do a little productive work for the ranch. That would be helpful for transport.
Yeah. No, he's good about coming over and doing that. And it's about coordinating it. He's got a life and work too. So does she. So we, it's important. I don't ask very often, as you both know, but when I need that help, it's like, God, I really need that help. It's not easy to do it without it. And then we'll preg test right after we bring those cows home, and get them done early, and then we'll start getting ready to feed. And which is one more project. I'm gonna tweak on that bale feeder that I made for the back of the pickup. I've had that, given it a good proving for 2 years, and so now I'm gonna kind of do something a little bit more. Structurally, I'm just not going to set it up on some wood blocks now. I'm going to put some feet under it so it can be a whole lot lighter, and it's more portable. I can take it off that pickup if I needed to. So, we'll feed out a half grass hay and half alfalfa when we feed, and I can use that feeder to do that. But it's about kind of just finishing some projects that make it easier to do it too. And that, having that block on the back of that pickup is kind of a pain, and for it to work. But we needed it to prove it without putting a ton of time into it and building something that isn't going to work and you'd scrap or have to redo later. Well, it worked, and now we just are making it a little bit better for this year.
Yeah, you brought up another thing that I completely forgot about, but within 4 weeks there's 3 pretty significant events. There's the preconditioning, the calf sale itself, and then the I don't know how I forgot this, but the Preg check for all
Yep.
the cows to make sure they're actually impregnated. You'll notice and identify who is dry or not pregnant. Any heifers that have not
Mhm.
bred before but are dry, are you going to do what you did last year with cankles? And are you going to butcher them as well? And if so, how
Yeah.
many will you cap it at?
Well, that's a very good question. Generally, if you got a heifer, first time heifer, and she's been saturated with bulls and she's not pregnant, you may have a fertility issue there. So, you don't, you really don't hang on to her. Go ahead and cut your loss, and she'll actually make a really, really good fine piece of meat.
Yeah.
And yes, we did that exactly. Cankles was a couldn't remember what I was calling her last year, but I was trying to make her have some cankles. I guess is what I was doing is
Well,
feeding
and the
her up,
thing is
finishing her.
that they're also in the age range too for the
Hmm.
butcher, because if
Oh,
you go another
absolutely,
year, then they're kind of outside that optimal age range because
right.
normally they get butchered you're between 18 to 36 months. At if they're a dry heifer, they're right around 30 to 36 months. So it's
Sure.
about that time to butcher them anyway. So
Yep.
having that opportunity, I feel like it's just it's efficiency. Braden brought that up a couple years ago. We started using it, and I think it's been fantastic. And I like
Yeah.
seeing that we're making that as optimal as possible for the process.
And we have a list of people who are willing to take them all. I mean, they're waiting just to see whether or not we got any dry heifers. And
Yeah.
you don't want a dry heifer, but if you do, and it's a fertility issue, that's a really good way to do that. It's a great piece of meat for somebody or a group of people, a couple of people, four people, when they take a whole heifer or four quarters, then send her to town, and she goes for as a slaughter animal anyway. Where uh, we know, and the people that we deal with know that we're handling these cattle quietly, and they're getting hand fed twice a day when we're fattening them, and it's they're going to have a really good quality piece of meat to chew on through the remainder of the winter. But yeah, we're going to preg test. I think this year is the 30th of October, and within a that day we'll know who we've got. Well, then if I start feeding them out October, November, starting into the first part of January, then somebody's going to have some good eating, that first week or so in January for the year.
The Yeah, that's a fantastic segue to something that I was gonna do later, but it works out better now. Feeding butcher animals. You said you've already got some steers lined out. How many are there? Let's start with that. How many are there right now? And then of course you can always potentially get one or two later with the dry
Right.
heifers. But what have you got in the queue
The,
right now? What are you doing? How are you handling it?
yeah, this batch we've got 5 steers that we're doing
Ooh,
right now.
a lot of meat.
Which, I mean, we're not talking big numbers. I mean, if you had a feedlot, you'd be several hundred. But
Yeah. But
uh,
for us, that's a lot.
yeah,
Five is a
yeah.
lot. That's a lot of
Well,
meat that can
and
potentially feed 20 families.
yeah, yeah. But what we're doing with that is we've tried to not be greedy and tried to not be, oh, here's an idea, let's try this and just screw it up.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to not eat beef hardly at all. We eat venison, and most of it was legal when I was growing up. And
When I was growing up, there was still quite a bit of venison that was all legal.
it was all legal, yeah. But we never ate beef because we couldn't afford it. And so, how do you sell something to someone that you haven't truly proven for yourself? And
Right.
I'm getting to the ages like, you know what? I want to eat some good meat. I don't want to just eat venison all the time. And don't get me wrong, I love venison, but I also love beef. And so we've done several things. We've butchered a couple virgin bulls and tried them. And you know what? They're good eating, really good eating. Uh, Steers, heifers, the steers to heifers, once you have that hiding off of them and they're going through the processor, you really can't tell the difference in them. They do a
No.
better, faster weight gain, but you can't tell the difference in taste.
Yeah.
So those options, having that, doing that, and providing that knowledgeable um, product, or knowledgeable what it's going to be on from a being able to relate to somebody who wants to buy it. Um, we are living that. We're not just saying it. So we started out kind of slow, doing 3-4 head or just a few head at a time, and now we're ramping that up. And I think this coming year we're probably going to have probably 8 to 10 steers that we're going to butcher out for somebody, and then of course have those heifers available as well. And
And you're
yes,
talking the years and the whole calendar new year, not just a couple months.
well, they'll be basically in a couple months, but we could,
Okay.
depends on somebody wants them. If they want to wait and have that animal a little bit bigger, we'll do that. But you got to remember, our kind of our market is for people who are trying to get the most bang for their buck.
Sure.
Everybody's doing that, but we're butchering these animals at about 20 months, 22, 24 months at the most, at the latest. And so we're avoiding some of that big bone growth on the skeletal growth. And it's a little bit smaller animal, so it's not overall, it's not going to cost them as much. Same money per pound, but just less pounds. So they're not buying a lot of heavy, dense bone. They're getting something that's a little bit younger. It's going to be more tender for sure. It's a pretty dang good piece of meat. So we're trying to do that in a different way, a little bit different model, where we're not just putting as many pounds on something as we possibly can and then selling it for that. This is custom feeding for somebody. Truly, I mean, by hand custom feeding, not just having 300 head out there that, or 400 or 1,000 head that you're feeding, and you're getting them up a certain weight and you're sending them in. No, this is a lot different. This is much more hands-on, more personal. I mean, I know the personalities of these animals, so I mean, that's how up close and personal I get with them. And you're feeding them twice a day, and you know how they act, what keeps them calm, and you just have a little bit extra special personalized care with them as you're feeding them up.
Well, and that was my next question too, is where are you in the process right now? You said they're supposed to be probably getting butchered around the turn of the calendar year. So where exactly are you in the process with the feeding out for the
Yeah,
animals?
three of them are going to be butchered November 8th. I take them to the processor, and then
Okay.
two of them on November 22nd. And
Okay.
so they'll
So
be
you're
spread out
definitely
just a
in the
couple weeks.
process for a couple and about to start for the next.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And then then if we have the heifers, then you got basically a week uh or 3 weeks from the time the last one goes out that the other ones will have been started. So there's a potential, let's say I've got one or two heifers to feed out. I will be feeding them 1 week before the first three go to market or go to the processor. So we'll be different stages there as well. But that's just the way it is. You got to feed them up. I'd be surprised if somebody wants um, a cow that's just grass fat. And we have had people ask for that. They don't want necessarily a finished product. They want something that's more like venison with very, very lean meat, grass fed. And that's not a problem. We can do that too. It just takes a lot of the wait time out of it too, because you're just taking them as soon as they're fat and fall grass and they're at the height of their bloom, then they're time to slaughter them, and they get a really good piece of meat that's very healthy. If that's what their concerns are, less marbling, more lean, and no finish. And the finish is really kind of irrelevant because we do all natural, nothing extra, no hormones, nothing like that, and no medicated feeds, anything like that. It's just a really good feed ration that they get.
You kind of talked about the management of the animals, some coming in, some going out, potentially getting more in at the same time others are coming out. How difficult is that to manage the herd within itself, because you've got them on different timelines, but then also to manage the small herd, because there's 5 right now, potentially more later,
Mhm.
outside the cattle herd already.
Well, these are done with in the corral. I keep them on full feed. They got all of the really good prime hay they want. I could kick them out into the pasture, but honestly, they're going to hang around. They hang around that hay at twice a day feeding, and the water's right there. So it's not tough to isolate them out. The harder part is to keep them separated from each other based on the feeding schedule. We'll bring this heifer in. Let's say, for instance, we have a heifer. We don't know that we will, but if we did, one or two. Let's just say we got one heifer that's dry, and we'll bring her in and put her with these steers, and then I'll just have to keep her in a separate at feeding time. And believe me, they know what feeding time is. They are like a dog. They're telling you what time it is. It's time to eat. And so I can just separate her out, uh, start her at a smaller portion, smaller rations, because I'm working these animals up on their feed weights, their rations, starting them out slow so that you don't just inundate them with a bunch of feed and make them sick. You don't want to do that. It's like you eating a whole bunch of candy in one big setting, and you can eat a lot of candy, but if you start out slow and per day, and then you just keep building up until you hit a plateau, the maximum you want to get for your weight gain, then you can just go ahead and go from there, and everybody's on the same page. You can just feed everybody at once, but you can't do that when you've got different feed schedules. So I'll just keep her separate. I'll just pull her into another pen here, or another corral that's separate from the steers, feed her out until she gets up to where they're eating the same amount, and then you can just kick them all together and you don't have to worry about it. And it's a little bit of management. There's no doubt it takes a little bit of time to draw that animal out, kick them off to the side, let them eat, keep them separate from everybody else. But you want to have a good, consistent piece of meat. That's part of why I do what I do, is we want to be able to tell how many pounds per day this animal's had, and there's no variation to that. You don't have other animals, eating their feed just because it's right there. You might have it out there, so many pounds per person or per steer per day, but somebody might be stealing half of somebody else's feed every day or every feeding, so they're getting an extra feeding every day. And you don't want that. That means somebody's not getting a full feeding every day. So it's about managing that and making sure it's consistent. That's kind of that science geek in me that makes sure that, we're controlling what we're feeding, and so that we can measure that outcome.
Switching gears slightly, and I'm gonna pitch the question and go on a bathroom break real quick at the same time because I can listen in my ear. You're working on projects right now. You specifically said fencing. Like I said, the video will come out mid-October. I'll get to another question after that, but kind of what are some of the projects other than, you already said the square bale feeder, which we'll have a link to that as well, because I think that's an important one that people see, like how much ingenuity you kind of put into that, and you've a lot of extra love and work you put as well. But then what you're going to do as well as often also on the side this year to kind of prep for the fall time. But other than that, what else have you been doing with regards to fencing and any other projects? So with that, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, we've got one of the big deals is some improvements on this ranch house. And we've got an old boiler system in here that's, holy mackerel, that's 50 years old, almost 50 years old. So it's tired, and it's not as efficient as it should be. There's no air conditioning. We put a couple of those window rattlers in the wintertime. We blow air with fans around the upstairs to be able to keep it cool in here, and that's really inefficient. The heating in the summer or in the wintertime is very inefficient. So we are putting in a geothermal system where we're going to be drilling down and putting in some loops about 220 feet in the ground, and then tying those together, 5 different loops, tying them together so that you've got a heat exchange using the earth. We had that in our place at Shepherd. When we built that house, we had big slinkies instead of loops, where we just drilled into the ground, but same effect, same thing. Very efficient. Paid for itself. That one paid for itself in like 3.5 years. It was very efficient, and air conditioning all the time. You don't have to worry about it. This is an old boiler system that I got to keep my eye on it all the time. So it's a whole lot different. So that's one of those improvements, yet things that we have to do to this place to, keep it going. We get to be the lucky ones that replaces something that wore out. That's just the way it works. Then there's the low tech part of that too, which we also like to have. I like to have some alternative heating. We got this wood stove here inside of insert into a fireplace. And so we've got a lot of we got about 12 cords of wood we need to cut and split. So, yeah, I'll probably do that with maybe your brother since he's really good at
So you
that.
got a Sawyer for a son, then he's
We
the
have a Sawyer, yeah. So I'm thinking we'll just pick some of these logs up, take them over to where we want to split them, and we'll cut them, and then cut them right off of the front of the tractor, lay them out, and have them all split up. Then bring the splitter over and have ourselves a little party. But you can split wood in the wintertime. That's
yeah.
that's I'm not. That's kind of one of those back burner issues where that one's not a high priority. It's a priority, but it's a little bit lower on the hierarchy. So, I would like to be cutting some wood here, um, probably between the time we precondition and the time we bring them home. It it won't take long. He can cut wood fast. Two of us are going. I bet you we can have that whole thing cut up in probably a half a day. Not split certainly, but at least cut up and sitting there ready to go. It's all dried out in big long logs.
The next question would be because it it just fits. Prepping for winter. The process for it. You keep going back to it, but prepping that square bale feeder. But also another thing that I wanted to put in here, which was hay. What's the status of hay? How much do you have? How much do you still have to go? Are they rounds? Are they squares? What's going on there? So just prepping in general for wintertime, other than just the cattle specifically, but just stuff.
Yeah. Well, we brought in I guess we got 11, 12, 13 bales of straw for bedding straw for this coming winter when we got 10 heifers to calve out. So we'll throw this bedding straw down for them. It was a lifesaver for them this spring. I mean, it worked well. So we got that in already.
And
I
you're
needed
talking
to.
like almost like idiot cube ones, like ones
No,
that,
these are big rounds. These are big
oh,
round
you've
bales.
got 10 big rounds for straw.
Yeah,
Dang.
13,
Okay.
13 of them.
13.
Yeah. So yeah,
Oof.
no, it's going to work well. It worked really well last year. It's really it's interesting. They're little powder kegs really because it's not straw like you would normally think. They were put through the combine. The neighbor, I grew up with him. We graduated same year, and he's putting it through his combine, and they are having, like he said, a once in a lifetime year for grain. He's taking some of this and getting 110 bushel to the acre off of it. 80 bushel to the acre is enormous. 60 is pretty good, you know,
Yeah.
and no hail on it. He said he usually figures he loses 20% a year to weather, and he hasn't lost anything. So I was like,
That's
man,
crazy.
I am so happy for him that he's had this happen. Well, so consequently, when he combines, then he puts the straw out the back, and he doesn't keep windrows. He just spins those spinners back there, and it broadcasts it so that it can decompose
Yeah.
and feed the ground a little bit. Well, even with the spinners, it was so heavy that it was not broadcasting that, and he didn't know if he could seed through this or not. So yeah, so he's got another neighbor that I think he was in a grade younger than us. He's got a place, and he so he went over and raked it,
Yep.
and then but it's kind of chopped up, but it's heavy. It's not super fine. So he raked it and then made a bunch of straw bales, big straw bales. So I went and I talked to one neighbor and I said, asked him if he was doing any of that, and he goes, nah. He said the other guy is, and he said, you get a hold of him. So I did, and I saw he was hauling one day and said, just about cleaning that thing up. And I said, I'll tell you what, we kind of talked on the phone and been missing each other. And I said, for $25 a bale, and he said, yeah, 25 bucks is fair. And I said, these things are powder kegs. The more you move them, and there's one I'm just going to be able to pick up and throw in there. I
Yeah.
think we're going to be doing some, yeah. And he said, yeah, they're kind of tough. He said they're going to make great bedding, but they're tough to hold together. And I said, well, once you load it on there, instead of taking it home and we reload it on my trailer, I'll give you an extra $5 a bale to bring it up to my place. And he's like, yeah, that's easy enough. So he brought them, we unloaded them, got them there. So that part's done. And at the same time, I was looking at bringing these steers in so I could have something for them to feed on and eat in that corral, and instead of having to chase feed. And so the guy brought some grass hay from. He brought a load of about 22 ton. We got another 128 ton to bring in. And then, or no, wait, I think I got 150 ton from him. Yeah. And then, the guy we got some alfalfa from, he's going to bring us 160 ton, and we haven't seen any of that yet. We've got one truckload of hay. So when we start getting hay in, it's going to be busy. We're going to be, maybe multiple trucks a day would be fine. I'm completely good with that.
But you've just got a taste of hay so far. You haven't gotten a lot, is what I've heard.
Yeah, and it makes me a little nervous. I like to
Yeah.
have it in before snow hits. I want that stuff, put it in dry on a
Yeah.
dry ground. I don't want to put it in on snow. We've done that before. I've hated to do it. I don't like it. Truck drivers make other obligations to people, and sometimes on the same day, and they can't fulfill. So that can happen. But I like to have this hay in by certainly by August, and we're into September. I'm starting to give myself a little bit of an ulcer about, hey,
Yeah.
we got to get this hay in.
I got two things left, and I'm gonna start with the first one. We had babies. We had horse babies.
Yep. It's the
Otherwise
other part we
called
got to prep for.
otherwise called foals. We got those in May and June, and I think another one or two was in early July. We had five total.
Yeah, early July. Yeah.
Um, we recently posted pictures on Facebook, I think, and Instagram, but definitely had a couple of videos come out with the foals. One being just an overall, I think it was a 30-minute highlight of just all of them on a couple weeks ago, and then another one that came out was just the first 48 hours of imprinting, and that was our first baby. That was what we call her Bluey. Um, we've had some. Surprisingly enough, we've had a little bit of lash out on some of the comments. Like one of them was like
Backlash.
backlash. Yeah, I don't understand why you have a halter on them at all.
Oh,
Like babies shouldn't have halters. Um,
hey man, I'm free. You're free. No, you're not.
yeah, I was just curious, like what your thoughts are on the full videos, because I think you've seen them. I'm the one that puts them all together. If people haven't
Yep.
figured that out, I put them together. Dad doesn't necessarily see all the videos, but I think he's seen them. So I was just
I
kind of
did see that
thinking,
one. Yeah.
okay, I was curious as to your insight onto the videos themselves and the colts that we've had this year, and then also some of the comments that we have received because of that.
Well, I mean, this is something we do every year, and
Yeah,
this is not a process where we have a full, and when they're weaned, they go to somebody else. This is a long-term project or process that we put these horses through. And so, in some of them, and I believe that one we're going to keep her as a replacement mare.
Bluey. Yeah,
Um, yeah, she's a nice little mare, great conformation, a good mind, kind of something you want to have. So, this is a horse that's going to be around for 25 years. And so whether they're sold, in 6 months or you hang on to them, somebody may have them for 25 years. We want them to have the best training that they can possibly get and the best acclimation towards people through the imprinting process that we can possibly get. And so putting a full in a halter is an abuse. And I don't think anybody accused us of that. I don't know about that. I think they
the
just
the
there's
the
no reason.
comment, the way it was worded, and I think it was poorly executed in my opinion, was I think it was a concern for full safety.
Yeah.
But and we completely understand that. That's
Should be
why
concerned
we
for full
yeah,
safety. Yeah.
that's why we do what we do the way we do it. And
Right.
we explained that in the video that came out in the 48 hours of imprinting. Um, but this video that the comment was made on was before that came out.
Hmm.
But again, like I said, I think it was for the concern of the full safety, just a poorly way of going about saying that.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Well, and you know what? People are entitled to their opinions.
Right. And I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it that way, don't. But don't tell me I can't.
Yeah. Free country,
Because
man.
well, and I tell you what, we have had generations of horse sales where people are like, man, um, I'd pay twice this to have this horse trained the way you guys do it, or buy one of your horses. I had one, just a confirmation of a horse training. I think it was 2 weeks ago. and talked to the gal. She had booked this horse, and we had to make some arrangements because she booked the training when she bred the mare. And now the horse is coming 4 in the spring. She didn't want to do her this year. She says, I want to wait a little bit. She's a little small. And I said, that's the right decision to make. The horses, if you got any doubt and they're smaller, yeah, wait a year. So big deal. And we, was able to accommodate that, which we can't always do. But we were able to do it with this horse. And she said, I'm sure the price has gone up for training. And I said, it has. And I told her how much. She goes, still worth it. I mean, just immediately. Well, you know what? It doesn't mean that just because we're doing something and you don't agree with it doesn't mean we don't have success with what we're doing. So, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I have an open mind about what somebody else will do. I certainly do, because you never know where somebody's going to spark something in what we do versus what they do. Then I look at it and I go, ooh, we can incorporate that.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? I mean, that's not being anything other than smart about, a repertoire of goods that you can throw at a horse and make them better.
Yeah.
Safety is an absolute concern, because if something happens to a horse, then what do you got? You've got nothing.
Nothing.
We're not taking chances unnecessarily, and things can happen, certainly, but you do everything you can to keep these horses as safe as you possibly can.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to transition to the last point that I had today, and that was coming from your initial take, and that is the futures of small family ranches. Talking about everything that's happened for upcoming to the fall, the many moving pieces, the concerns you have for things like hay. You've got just a little bit, you've got a lot waiting out there, small projects getting ready for winter time, the calf sale and good prices for now, with the details that we explained about, the potential costs that might incur for the next few years in the future. What does a potential profit do for us this year? And what do you see the future of small family ranches as of right now?
The future of family ranching is still, to me, it's grim, honestly. Who in their right mind wants to hang around a place, a ranch, work their ass off, and not make any money, not have huge risk, and at the same time, no security? I mean, those are not things that you go to a job for. If you're looking to increase your situation, make yourself better, you're going to a job that pays more money, has better benefits, some secure time off. I get a couple of weeks of vacation a year. And it isn't like we don't go anywhere, but it's rare. And we have to go through some significant things to be able to enjoy a vacation or some time off when you're on a ranch, and most ranchers are that way. And when your kids are coming up and they see somebody who goes to school when they did, if they choose to go to college even, and they say, oh man, I can get an engineering degree and I can make some good money, or I can even go into the trades and make some really good money and kind of set my own hours instead of your hours setting you, and do all these things and have some things. The reward is not there anymore for some of the younger people. And I get it. I mean, this is a lifestyle it's kind of sacrificial in a lot of ways. You sacrifice a lot to be able to maintain a heritage and a lifestyle. You're not making a lot of money at it, and the hours are long. Does somebody tell me what I'm supposed to do during a day? No, they don't. They don't. Your mother does a little bit, and I listen to her, and I say, yes, ma'am. And then I do what the hell I'm going to do anyway. So
We'll keep that between us.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. But no, there is something to that lifestyle. And I've had some friends, one in particular, say he envies what we've done, what my dad did, my grandpa's did, what I'm doing. He says, I envy you guys. Nobody tells you what to do. It's like, well, it looks like that on a daily basis, but you still have to do things in order to make the place work. And that's not necessarily something that's your choice. It's about, whether you're going to choose to do it at all. You're still going to have to do it. So, yeah, it looks carefree. It's not. It's stressful for sure. I mean, so who coming up and younger really wants to put themselves in those positions? I think there's less and less people that are willing to do that, and so because of that, it's very easy for, I think, a small family place to get an offer from somebody and take it,
Yeah.
and they're gone forever, and that heritage ends. And I hear a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I can remember my grandpa had a farm and we went out there." And they don't now, and their dad didn't, and mom didn't, and they don't, but grandpa had something. And when you talk to them a little bit, they have really good memories of that, but they are very disconnected for what actually took place on that. They don't really know what happened, and sometimes they don't know why. They say, "Well, I just sold the farm." You don't just sell the farm necessarily. You can not have any heirs and not have any uh, buddy that's going to pick up that end and keep going with it. That happens, but more often than not, they're not willing to, because they don't want to sacrifice their life for a lifestyle.
Yeah. And then the second part of that question, what does you already kind of answered it before, but what does a profit for this year do for us at the Hashknife Ranch?
Well, it allows us to stay in business for another year. Honestly, I mean, that's what it does. You can't go in the hole too many years before you got to say, okay, we can't do this anymore. We have to sell all these cows, and hopefully, when things get better, then we get back in, or do something a little bit different, innovate and change and try to stay on top of it. We still got our horses. We sell plenty of horses, train plenty of horses, which now with a new crop like this, it's a good thing you're getting out of the Army, because I ain't getting any younger, and I'm going to need some help training some horses. So, we've always done that as a necessity, and now I do it still as a necessity. There was a time when I didn't have to train horses if I didn't want to, but I love training horses. I love being around horses, and it was a nice addition that helped you guys maybe get some clothes and boots and be able to go to school. And now it's back again. It's a necessity, because we're on this ranch full time, and
Yeah.
you do everything you can. I just taught a clinic here a couple weeks ago, and all of that clinic money went into what? Yes, fencing. It didn't go into going on a trip somewhere.
Uh,
So
I was
that's
gonna
what happened.
say, to quote you from that upcoming fencing video, the work doesn't quit.
Work done quit. That's right.
So with
We
that,
have to start. You gotta, yeah, we gotta start those lists of sayings that Grandpa's had and my dad had, and some of them you can't readily write down and say in public, but you know what? They're kind of funny, and there's some truth to them.
you know, I've I've got an idea for those sayings. You just stick
Mm.
with me. You said that that big A word was about to be done with, so I got some plans for when that's complete. So yeah,
There you
just
go.
just just keep those in your hind pocket. We'll use them.
All right. Well, I guess I think that's probably covered what we're going to cover.
Yep.
You know, we got to bring some of these colts in. We're gonna be weaning them as well. We're gonna use that stud to help keep them nice and calm when we wean, and play with them throughout the winter as well. We'll have probably a little bit of video of that from time to time, calming these colts down. And guess what? They're gonna have halters on them.
Huh.
Oh, oh my God. So anyway, yeah, I'm uh, I'm thrilled that we can bring this to you, share a little bit of it, and our payback is just some more understanding, because knowing where your food comes from, what it takes to get there is a pretty important thing for everybody, not just the people that are making it for you. So with that, we thank you till you're better paid.